Okay, so George Washington had a very interesting life. He was a military general and also eventually became the first president of the United States. But the thing is, something that many people don't really know much about is his personal life. So that's what I'm going to be talking to you guys about today. Okay, so one of the most poorly understood parts of George Washington's life was his childhood. So not much is really known about his childhood. However, there are a lot of fables and stories that come from his childhood. For example, there's a story where George Washington got a hatchet and he cut down his father's favorite tree, but he ended up confessing to his father because he could not tell a lie. However, the story is not even real. It didn't actually happen and it's just made up. So yeah, not much is really known about his childhood. Okay, so at first George Washington actually wanted to be part of the British Navy, but his mother didn't allow him. So what he did instead was he became a surveyor. So he basically just kind of scouted areas of the wilderness, and yeah, that's what he did early in adulthood, as a young adult. He was a surveyor. Okay, so on January 6, 1759, Washington married Martha Dandridge Custis, a charming and vivacious young woman from the Tidewater area of Virginia. So yeah, Martha brought enormous wealth along with two small children, Jackie and Patsy, to the marriage. And it was her second marriage, and it was George Washington's first marriage. Alright, so George Washington also had a lot of hobbies. He is known to be a really good dancer. He also enjoyed hunting and doing a lot of different stuff. But since he was the president, he didn't always have time to do it, so these were his things that he would do when he had free time. Okay, so this is George Washington's death. So one day he was riding along a farm, because he was also, later in his life, he watched over farms with his surveying skills. But he was riding over the farm and it was sleeting, it was rain and snow, so it was really cold. And when he got back for dinner, it was he was kind of late, so he refused to change clothes even though he was soaking wet. And later that night he had throat pain, and then this pain just got more and more severe as the days went on, and a few days later he passed away.
So as president, Washington did many things that still helps America today. But one important thing that he did was he created the cabinet. So Washington realized that he needed help to rule the country. So he created a cabinet. So first, before creating the cabinet, he created a bunch of departments. The departments he created were the Department of State, the Department of War, and the Department of Treasury. And then the leaders of all those departments would be in Washington's cabinet. So Thomas Jefferson was Secretary of State, Henry Knox was Secretary of War, and Alexander Hamilton was Secretary of the Treasury. So during Washington's presidency, he had to solve a lot of problems between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. And so Hamilton was, was Hamilton a Federalist or an Anti-Federalist?
He was a Federalist.
He was a Federalist, the rich people.
So during Washington's presidency, he had to face a lot of problems, and he had to solve a lot of problems between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. Hamilton was an influential person in the Federalists, and Jefferson was an influential person in the Anti-Federalists. The Federalists wanted a bank to keep the country's money safe, while the Anti-Federalists wanted the capital in the South so that even the states in the South could access the capital. And to solve the problems between the Federalists and Anti-Federalists, Washington gave them both what they wanted. So they gave the Federalists a bank, and they also moved the capital to the South, and they moved it to Washington, D.C. So when Washington came in to be the president, the most major problem that he faced was America's debt. So many people came in with advice, but Hamilton told Washington to create a national bank to close the debt. But Washington didn't like the idea that much, so he didn't say yes to that immediately. But then when problems started getting worse, then he agreed to the National Bank, and that's when America's debt started getting lower. Even though Washington was the first president of the United States, he only served for 2 years, and then he quit because he wanted to show that presidency wasn't like monarchy. So Washington gave us a lot of advice in his farewell address, but obviously, being us, we never listened to any of that because we're dumb. So some of the main topics in his address were to not create political parties because that would split up the nation, and to not form alliances with other countries, because when you form an alliance with another country, then you have a country that starts hating you for forming that alliance. Because always countries have enemies, and the enemies of the countries that you make an alliance with will hate you if you make an alliance with them. So therefore, nothing that Washington said in his address is still used today.
So these are 2 skits that we made for the Revolutionary War.
Alright, British soldiers, we have to move. We have to keep moving through the forest to the battleground. Come on, come on. Troops, we're under fire! We're under fire! Where is it coming from? Where is it coming from?
So where should we go next, Native American?
Oh!
Where are the shots coming from? Oh no, bush camper!
Smallpox! Smallpox! The pain, the agony, it's hurting.
I, George Washington, don't know what to do about this.
Smallpox!
Oh wait, I have an idea.
Smallpox!
We could take smallpox and inject it in you people to make it go away.
Oh boy, I hope I don't get smallpox.
Okay, so let me just make a small incision. Alright, I need some smallpox pus from you. Alright, smallpox. I just need to apply the smallpox to your cut. And there you go, you're immune from smallpox. Congratulations.
Yeah, boy!